how sweet it is. Hello, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Jobu. Oh, hold on. We're now open for business. Thank you guys for watching, commenting, and subscribing to the Jobu Sports Report. Without you guys, Lord knows this does not work. And welcome to another edition of Don't Sleep on the Dallas Cowboys, because literally, you can't sleep on the Dallas Cowboys because stuff always happens late in the night, late in the evening, first thing in the morning. Stuff is always going on with my Dallas Cowboys. Now, before I get to the topic for the day, let me go ahead and deal with the Terrance Williams situation because, when I first heard the details, it was like, oh, Terrance, are you kidding me? This is just stupid. And I'm not going through and I'm going to defend him or anything, but like I said, let's go by what we've heard, at least from his side of the story, because we have seen instances where we presume the person was dead to rights guilty, and it ended up being later on, not so much. We could point at Zeke Elliott and kind of say, there was definitely a shadow of a doubt, if not more than that, but we won't get into that one. But remember Lecky Whitehead, where there was arrest warrant issued for him for robbing a convenience store, a gas station. Turns out somebody else did it. Mistaken identity. So let's hold down for a second, because a lot of people are saying, well, he's still a dumbass for leaving the scene of an accident. Well, that may be true, but he didn't hit another car. And in fact, they say he actually didn't hit a light pole. The car jumped a curb and couldn't drive. Now, if you jump a curb with a Lamborghini, Lamborghini's got about that much clearance. Could be that some damage happened to the undercarriage of the car, conceivably, and it wasn't drivable, and it didn't hit a light pole. That is a plausible thing that could have happened. Being out at 4:30 in the morning with your Lamborghini coming from who knows where, well, that's a mistake of poor judgment. But before we go through, because we know what's going to happen, we're going to hear Stephen A. Smith tomorrow say the Cowboys are the accident waiting to happen, like this is the only off-season trouble that's been in the NFL. And it's not. Far cry. In fact, this is minor in comparison to some of the things that have gone on. Let me just give you a little taste of some of these things. For all of you guys that are out there casting stones right now, we had Trevor Davis accused of talking about explosives when going into the airport. Okay, he's got a bomb threat. You had Darrell Woolley of the Eagles accused of resisting arrest after being found unconscious in his car blocking the highway with a gun without a permit. Yeah, so you Eagle trolls that are out there talking right now about how stupid my man is, remember that Darrell Woolley was found unconscious in his car with a gun without a permit, okay? Yeah. He did get released, but still. Michael Bennett, you still got him on the team, and of course he's dealing with legal issues of pushing a woman in a wheelchair. You got Duron Harmon from New England, yes, the New England Patriots, who got apprehended in Costa Rica for having weed. You got Zay Jones, who was on the 25th floor, got charged with vandalism, breaking glass, butt naked. Yeah. You got Adam Gotes from Denver accused of rape. You've got Aldon Smith. I don't even need to talk about Aldon Smith. But you even got Wildman from the Jets, who was drunk driving, blew a 1-5 and went the wrong way down the Lincoln Tunnel. So understand that this is not just a Cowboy problem. This is a society problem in general. If you take 1,000 people, you're always going to find a few people that get into trouble. And understand, NFL players are the same as well. So moving right along, we'll see what happens with the Terrance Williams situation. But here's some interesting news, and something you Eagle fans don't seem to want to deal with, and that's reality. One of the reasons why we truly love the NFL is right now, 32 teams are 0-0. And for the most part, everybody has an opportunity to turn their fortunes around in one season, except maybe the Cleveland Browns. because teams go from worst to first almost on a regular in the NFC East. But in fact, from one year to the next, playoffs, statistics will tell you that half of the teams or more that made the playoffs this year won't be back next year. It'll be a new crop. And in fact, this past season, only one playoff team played in the playoffs the year before, and that was the Atlanta Falcons. Kind of mind-blowing. Because at this time of the year, you're listening to the talking heads. They're telling you that, oh my God, the Rams, they are built, for the long haul. The Philadelphia Eagles, best team in football. They're built for the long haul. Great coaching staff, great young quarterback. Core team is fantastic. But then, somehow, some way, it's always somebody that nobody talked about, nobody thought about. Think about this. Going into this time last year, you had guys like Chris Sims talking about the New York stinking Giants being a Super Bowl favorite. They just added Brandon Marshall. How are you going to stop that? Sterling Shepard, Brandon Marshall, Odell Beckham Jr. with a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. That great defense of the New York Giants. They are Super Bowl contenders and my favorite to go to the Super Bowl. Yeah, Chris Sims. Second worst record in the NFL. And I've said this before. If I had said this time last year that the Giants, the Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers, and the Seattle Seahawks were not going to make the playoffs, that's when everybody was said, you're an idiot. Don't quit your day job. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I forgot. They already say that about me. But it's true. Look what they said about us last year. Jason Garrett finally gets it. Best offensive line in football. Stud young quarterback rookie of the year. Zeke Elliott. The real deal. Can't stop him. Odds-on favorite to be a Super Bowl contender. How'd that work out for us? It's a natural progression of things. Because let's just take a look at how crazy it is. In 2010, playoff teams were the Saints, the Seahawks, the Packers, the Eagles, the Falcons, and the Bears. The next year, the only teams that made it back to the playoffs that were playoff players last year, the year before, were the Saints, the Packers, and the Falcons. You had San Francisco come out of nowhere. You had the Giants go on and win the Super Bowl. And you had the Lions. More than likely, nobody was talking about those teams. And the crazy thing for the NFC East is, of the last 6 years, only one of them, the team that was in the basement, failed to win the division the next year. But if we look at 2012, only the Packers, the 49ers, and the Falcons were playoff teams. The new blood, Vikings, Redskins, and Seahawks. 2013, same thing. 3 of the teams from the year before, Seahawks, Packers, San Francisco. New blood, Saints, Panthers, Eagles. 2014, again, Seahawks, Packers, and Panthers. Now, the pattern here, of course, is that the Seahawks and the Panthers have been basically to the playoffs almost every year in the last, since 2010. But new blood, the Cardinals came through and made it. Our Cowboys finally got into it, and the Lions for the second time since 2010. Go figure. 2015, 3 teams. Seahawks, Packers, and Panthers. And again, we got the Washington-stinking Redskins going from worst to first. The Vikings and the Cardinals back-to-back. I'm sorry, we actually have 4 that year. We had Cardinals back-to-back 2 years, 1 year. So it's actually 4 that year. But we make up for it down the road because in 2016, only 2 teams were playoff teams the year before. The Seahawks and the Packers. Got new ones, Lions, Falcons, Cowboys, and Giants. And finally, this past year, Only the Falcons were in the playoffs the year before. And it's kind of amazing when you think about it because, of course, they talked about the New York Giants. Oh, that defense. Talked about the Cowboys. Oh, that offensive line and Zeke Elliott. Seahawks. Legion of Boom. Russell Wilson. Now, of course, the Packers had Aaron Rodgers injured, but still, it's the natural progression of things. So the question is, of our playoff teams this year, Rams, Panthers, Falcons, Saints, Eagles, and Vikings. Statistics tells us that at least 3 of them will not be playoff teams next year. So the question is, which 3 do we think aren't going to be there? The Eagles, I think, are built well. I think they're going to come back down to earth, but I think that they're going to be in the playoffs. The Vikings, I think, are going to fall back. With Aaron Rodgers coming back, I think that's going to hurt the Vikings' chances a bit. And I think getting rid of Case Keenum actually is going to hurt. I think Kirk Cousins failed. I think that's going to blow up in their face. So I don't think the Vikings are going to make it back. The Saints, they seem to have rediscovered a running game and realized that Drew Brees can throw 4,000 plus yards every year. But until you have a running game where you can control that clock and balance the offense, it doesn't work quite as well. And I think that they're actually going to make it back to the playoffs next year. The Falcons, I think they're on a downward trajectory. I'm kind of blogging up there. I think they're going downhill a little bit. I think Julio Jones is beginning to show a little bit of his age now. I think Matt Ryan, without Shanahan as an offensive coordinator, I think that offense has taken a bite. I don't think the Falcons will be. Panthers. The Panthers need wide receivers, and they need to protect Cam Newton because it's basically Cam and against the defense. I think the Panthers might not make it back next year. And the Rams, great defense, but I'm not quite sold on them. I'll give them a maybe because they're in a tough division. So, guys, who are your picks for teams that won't make the playoffs? The next segment of this we'll talk about teams that I think will replace those teams in the playoffs. Hope you guys are having a great Sunday. I know it's another Sunday without football, but it gets us one step closer. I'm Mark Holmes. This is Cowboy Joe Boo. And thank you guys for watching, commenting, and subscribing to the Joe Boo.